Let's talk about minimum reception altitudes. And to do that, let's take a look at Victor 16 between Big Spring and Abilene. This time we want to take a look at the Loran intersection, which is an interesting name for an intersection made up of VOR radials. Well, you know, Loran was a form of direct navigation for boats and aircraft that was decommissioned back in 2010. If you have a pilot friend who's been around for a while, you should try this bet. I'll bet you lunch that Loran is still used in the IFR system. If they take the bet, just show them the Loran intersection and tell them where to take you for lunch. Well, folks, notice that the Loran intersection has a flag with an R sticking out of it. And under the intersection name, it lists an MRA, or minimum reception altitude, of 6,500 feet. Now, the minimum en route altitude along this stretch of airway is 4,500 feet. So why do you have a higher minimum reception altitude at the Loran intersection? Well, using VORs to navigate the normal way, Loran intersection would be identified where Victor 16 and the San Angelo SJT 341 radial intersect. The FAA has test flown this airway to determine the minimum altitude that the off-airway navigation signal from San Angelo SJT can be received, and they determined that 6,500 feet is the lowest altitude you can receive the San Angelo 341 radial to identify Loran intersection. So the purpose of the minimum reception altitude is to tell you how high you're going to have to be in order to receive an off-airway radio signal to identify an intersection. You'll want to keep in mind that minimum reception altitudes do not apply if you have an IFR certified GPS. That equipment uses satellite reception and its own internal database to determine your position relative to Loran intersection or any other waypoint that you select. If you do not have GPS, but you do have DME, you can identify Loran intersection as 40 nautical miles west of Abilene on Victor 16. And you could do that at the MEA on the airway, 4,500 feet, because the MEA guarantees you navigational signal coverage to fly the airway itself. But if you don't have either GPS or DME, Loran would be identified as where Victor 16 and the San Angelo 341 degree radial intersect. And to receive San Angelo 341 radial, you must be at or above the MRA of 6,500 feet MSL. Now, in real life, does it matter if you are flying this airway at or above the MEA but below the MRA and do not have either DME or GPS to identify Loran? Great question. And the short answer is, it doesn't matter much. If you're at or above the MEA of 4,500 feet, you'll be able to receive Abilene and Big Spring along the whole segment of Victor 16, and you'll be able to stay on the airway center line. And as you're flying along, if the controller should ask you to report Loran intersection, you just advise that you're unable due to the MRA.